The Oso community is not really an incorporated city or town. It's a very small community consisting of a fire department, a small store, and a chapel. Those that live there range from people who've been there for all their lives all the way to the commanders of the Naval Station Everett.
When we first looked at the house, one of our neighbors came out and told us about the neighborhood, and we knew just by him and how he talked about everybody that this was the place that we wanted to settle down and retire and grow old together.
March 22nd was on a Saturday, and I had been spending the day with my family. It was my birthday.
I went to work that day. When I got to work, I found out that they were going to call me off, that I was actually supposed to be home. And one of my coworkers said that her brother was a first responder and that he had just gotten a call that there was some catastrophic event in Arlington. And I said, well, I live in that area. Can you find out what's going on?
I had gotten a call from a friend that said that there was a disaster happening. We didn't know the depth or the breadth of it.
It took some time, and then she says, well, whatever happened, it happened in Oso.
I was out working in the yard, and my wife said, Steve, you've got an email coming in. There's something happens up in Oso in 530. There's a big slide that's covered the road.
And I panicked, and I ran to my phone, and there was already a message from one of my neighbors who was also at work. And she said, something really bad has happened. You need to call me. So I immediately tried to keep calling my husband, and of course he didn't answer the phone.
The slide was basically a large block of soil that slid off the mountain and hit some unconsolidated wet soils at the bottom. And it turned into more than a landslide. It was more like a debris avalanche flow, more like a real high, fast-moving mud flow, very destructive. That moved across the valley floor, pretty high rate of speed. There's been estimates out there of 50, 60 miles an hour. I heard about a landslide in Washington, but didn't give it much thought until about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock that evening, when I received an email and then a call from the executive director of the Red Cross of Snohomish County. And Chuck called and said, Tim, we need you. The loss of life is going to be greater than what is being currently reported, and we need your support.
Well, as soon as we heard about it, we set up our emergency response process. So that's one of our responsibility to take care of the larger community, but also as a hospital and a level 2 trauma center, we have responsibilities around emergency response.
So I made it as far as the Oso fire station. They wouldn't let me go any farther than that. And when I pulled in, they weren't going to even let me go into the parking lot. And I said, well, I live on Steelhead Drive. And the look on that fireman's face told me everything. And I just remember screaming and pounding on him and telling him no.
He told me to stop it, restart it, and start it.
And he had told me that they were all gone. That the whole neighborhood was gone.
What often happens in a disaster is it raises the big questions of life. Like, why would God let this happen? And where is God in the midst of this? And why would this happen to my child or my family? As chaplains, we hold and honor the story of every family. We go in and we say, tell me about your daughter. Tell me about your husband.
I came to Providence because my husband had a heart attack. And the way we were treated with such respect and the care that he got here, I decided that day after he had his stent put in that I thought I would apply for a job here. And I got hired a couple months later. Tom was the kindest, most gentlest, most thoughtful, mindful person I think I've ever known. He was also very smart. I kidded around that I never needed to carry a dictionary because he knew the word, and he knew what it meant, and he knew how to use it in a sentence because his mother was a professor of library. He was very eclectic in his tastes. He loved rodeo and he loved opera. He became a very accomplished finish carpenter, master his trade. The happiest years of his life were the 8 years that we were together, and the last part, being up there, he was completely in his element. So for him, I'm glad we did it because he got what he wanted.
Amanda came to work for us here at Providence in August of 2013.
She had come from Washington State University, had a bachelor's in nursing. She was on the President's Honor Roll. She was very bright, energetic person, and this was a whole new kind of role for her. This is not a patient care job of nursing. This is a specialist. Really, it's a subcategory specialty in nursing. She was living in an apartment when she came to work for me, and she was real happy that she had been able to buy a house. And she had just bought that house and probably closed on it a couple of weeks before the slide. She came into my office on Friday afternoon at the end of the day on the 21st and said, you know, things are going really good now. I've moved in the house and I just love it there. It's really quiet there and it's out in the woods and I just really love it. That was our last interaction.
On the first few days, there was quite a bit of confusion, a lot of agencies on site, different fire departments from around the state. National Guard was there, elected officials were there. All total, about 900 to 1,000 people spread across the recovery effort doing a variety of tasks.
Our goal was to get information to the families that were in the shelter before the news had it.
Sherry was great. Her job was to help guide me through what was a very difficult meeting with families who had lost loved ones.
There were so many questions, so much angst, and it ranged. The range of emotion was complete grief and sobbing to anger, shouting sometimes, but it was all coming from a place of deep pain.
I didn't even have to think about it, I knew it. That the love and support and the help that I was going to need to just kind of move on was going to be there, because this is also a family at Providence. My 3A family is every bit as important to me as my family on Steelhead Drive or my family my kids, my husband. And they were there.
I think it's amazing all of the outpouring of support for the people in Oso that came after this. We set up a Helping Hands Fund, Employee Assistance Fund, and raised over $75,000, which was matched by the system. We received donations throughout the 5 states. We put together, just for my guys in my little department, $600 out of their pockets to give to the Amanda Lennick fund that was started by the School of Nursing to have scholarship funds to help other nurses coming through school. We supported both the United Way and the Red Cross through donations from the hospital and our foundation, so we were able to donate $50,000 in total. I think it reflects on the part of the mission statement that Providence has. The organization stepped up in many, many ways, and I can't be more proud of our response.
As far as the future of the area, we're working with the community. We've been having ongoing community meetings with the families. Personally, I'm hopeful that through support from FEMA and federal government, we can buy out many homes and just kind of leave it as is, as kind of a sacred site, a place to remember where a huge tragedy happened.
Life is very precious. Nobody's promised tomorrow. Nobody's promised the next minute. Everything can change very quickly.
What Mother Joseph began in the midst of our mission is alive and well today. It is truly reflected in every person that we saw and even those that we never knew were there.
We're all put on earth for a purpose and for a mission, to find the best calling for us personally and then to follow through.
Well, 100 years from now, I would hope that our caregivers always remember that the spirit of caring is inventive to infinity.
My name is Donovan. It is my honor and privilege to serve as the Vice President for Mission and Spiritual Care in the Northwest Washington region. Oso is such an important part of our community. And in this tragedy, we lost caregivers, family members of caregivers, and neighbors who become treasured partners in our work together. And so metaphorically, I share the stage with and I invite into our awareness each of the 43 lives that were lost, each of the 49 buildings that were destroyed, each of the hundreds and thousands of people who are impacted by this tragedy. And I'm proud, very proud to share the stage with the people of Providence. On that Saturday morning, I had told my wife I was just running over to the hospital for a very brief period of time to run a debriefing. As I brought that debriefing to a close in the emergency room, a security officer rushed in and pulled out a box I'd never noticed before that said Disaster Medical Command Center. Neither Tim nor I would see our families again for the next 6 days. Those we ministered to would never see their loved ones again. Our regional chief executive, Preston Simmons, did not hesitate for a moment to unleash our considerable resources in support of the people of Oso. He and Darren in facilities personally helped the Red Cross locate and set up administrative space. Our facilities team helped set up critical areas to help identify those who had been killed. We deployed specialists trained in communication to liaison between the community at large, the press, and the families. Our chaplains and specialists trained in caring for children in the midst of disasters spent days in the shelters, helping process story after story after story, each one so precious and so heart-wrenching. And we coordinated with Tim and the Red Cross to create sacred spaces to care for those caring for Oso. Working with the foundation and the system office, as well as the United Way, we had made a truly generous donation to help both with the immediate needs and the recovery process. And with Rod's support, we set up a Helping Hands Fund, specifically to help our immediate family, our people of Providence. And we were stunned when the sheer volume of donations coming in crashed the computer system, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Moments like these are seared into our memory. It's easy to see the impact of our ministry in a day like this. But as Dan reminded us so powerfully yesterday, our ability to make a huge difference in the lives of the most vulnerable on a day like this is grounded in and dependent upon 1,000 other days characterized by the nitty-gritty of planning and preparation. Well before March 22nd, someone had to have set up a box in the ER conference room with a system to ensure that the command center would be up and running immediately. Someone had to have thought through how to create a mobile command center, complete with power, communication, computers for over 100 people, and have it ready overnight. Someone had to have planned ahead and had partnerships with Children's Disaster Services and FEMA to provide specialized training in communication and in caring for young people when their children had either been killed or frankly too shell-shocked to function. And so as Todd and Aaron and Janice and Dan and Ira share their insights and wisdom with us today, let us remember that this gathering, which invites all of us to dream big about the future, sets the stage and prepares us to care both for entire communities and for that one person right in front of us when tragedy strikes. The world calls it overhead. We call it governance. The Christian scriptures call it a gift of the Spirit. A year ago, I had the awesome privilege of accompanying Debbie, who was featured in this video, through part of this terrible time. Debbie has made me promise that I would never speak about Oso to the people of Providence without expressing her personal thanks to each of you. And so on her behalf, thank you for caring, for helping, for remembering, for living out what it means to embody compassionate care for the poor and vulnerable. And in solidarity with Debbie, I pray that our time together this morning will help us fulfill that sacred responsibility. Amen.